I don't believe that balance exists. I believe it's wholeness.
I'm whole to begin with, but I have work to do.
Wholeness to me is being able to be your own bridge to your heart, through your heart.
Will is a familiar face in the Wholeness Library. You can find over a dozen of his follow-along energy therapy tutorials there. Considering a path in the medical field, Will decided he wanted to take more of the preventative approach to health and graduated with a degree in health promotion and education. He is trained in everything from neuro-linguistic programming, timeline therapy, a nutrition coach, massage therapist, yoga instructor. That's just to name a few. If you want to meet the epitome of a wellness coach, Will is your guy. So beneficial, maybe even more beneficial to think of these things as preventative or things like that. That's why we call it wellness, because we're going to go do it when we're well, not when we are ill, so, and it keeps us well more than anything else. So I love that. And we tease at the Wholeness Network, so we were like, you were like one of our first millennials or our first younger, because a lot of times most of the time it's women over 40 to 50 playing in this field. And so we were so excited to meet a young male, who was just as excited and just as talented and gifted in these things than we've seen most of the time in females, or most of the time in older people. So do you find that your clients are younger, or is that not necessarily part of it?
Yeah, so I work with a pretty broad age group. Primarily, though, would be 25 to 35. I see that data from my email list. So I get that. I do specifically work with gay men. That's a demographic that I've kind of naturally been led to work with. I'm gay myself, identify as gay myself. And I guess, within my network, within different things that I've been involved in, word has gone out about what I do. And it's just naturally flowed that way, like over the past 4.5 years since I've been coaching individuals. And then I've also incorporated fitness and nutrition services and massage therapy within my practice. So within that, with all those services, the gay population has been about 90% of who's been coming to my services. And so last year, about 8 months ago, I decided to just tailor my marketing to gay men and work with them. And I still accept all clients. People that come to me and find me, I do a little consultation, and if I feel like we're a good match, even if they don't match my typical demographic that I work with, then of course I'll work with them. But I also really love having a network of other professionals, other healers, other people in the wellness space that I can direct those people if I feel like there's a better fit somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm excited to talk to you in another episode specifically about the aspect that the niche of your this supporting gay men specifically. And I think you have a lot to say. You could probably identify with people of all different ethnic groups and sexualities and things like that. And I hope that you'll be, I hope that it's okay that we kind of ask you some of those questions and help us to help, to inform us and to help educate us on, I think, in my opinion, the more sameness we are than we are the difference. I feel like that's what I think is really important. And I think, I think it's great to niche down and to get support for people. People need someone that says me too, someone that says I know what you're talking about. And so we need all kinds of these things. So if you're a wellness coach, niche down as much as you can. I think I really commend you for standing up and saying, I will be with you, I will walk the path with you. And like you say, it's your path too, so it's not completely strange. It's not something that you're going into without understanding a lot of where they've been. And that's how most healers are, right? They, it's like once you have the hurt or the pain, most of us go on to healing that pain for others. And I know that's true for me and that kind of thing. So when someone makes a wellness appointment with you, regardless of what their problem are, what would that look like to come to see you as a wellness practitioner? What is entailed in that kind of a session or experience?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so to kind of break down wellness coaching, it is an umbrella term that I use to just cover the many different tools that I've learned over the years. And I feel like, many of your listeners who are in this space probably can relate to this desire to just continue to learn and to grow. And then we start looking back and we're like, oh my gosh, I have so much wealth of knowledge, and how do I market myself? And so I've stepped into some like marketing strategy over the past year and been able, like, like wellness coach is a good label for what I do. But what does that actually mean? So some of the certifications and trainings that I've gotten. So when I launched my business, I started out as a life coach. And then I also got trained in what's called rapid eye technology. So I did that modality, which is similar to EMDR, using eye movement patterns to release limiting beliefs, negative emotions. Very powerful tool, and I really loved that. And then I got trained in massage therapy. I feel like, for my wellness business, I needed massage therapy. It was such a... I love massage. Physical touch is so powerful. I love kind of that like very tangible, tactile element to healing. And then also to give me the license to touch was, I think, also an important component to that. So I incorporated massage, and that's been really great over these years because a lot of people are familiar with massage and they see the value of it. And I was able to bring a lot of people into my office who might have been hesitant for life coaching and be able to, share my talents with them and get to know them. And in many cases, people stayed for the coaching. They would want to look at improving other areas of their life. I incorporated, I got trained as a personal trainer, a nutrition coach. So I was able to address that part, which is a lot, when people think about wellness, a lot of people think, fitness and eating healthy. And so, I was kind of trying to learn some of these low-hanging fruit that are very tangible. But I really am passionate about like the inner work, right? Like the soul work. And so I continued my training. It's like an additional life coaching training by learning neuro-linguistic programming, also known as NLP, timeline therapy, and hypnosis. And so those three work really well together and have emerged as like my main coaching tools. But you know how it is. It's like you meet with someone and your intuition kicks in and you use what you feel you're called to use. I've also been trained in Reiki, Theta healing. So I have like a deep, and then my experience with Headspace, like I have a deep like meditation, like foundation where I just believe in the power of the subconscious mind and being able to get people to that relaxed brainwave state so that they can release those limiting factors in their life. So yeah, that's kind of like my journey with different certifications. I'll continue to learn. I'm learning about sound healing now, and I feel like many in this space can relate. We just have a thirst for knowledge, a thirst for helping people, and that'll continue growing. And then it's like, I don't know if it would like do much to I have so many like certifications on my office wall, not here, but elsewhere. And it's just like, what? I don't think at this point people care that I have 30 certificates. It's now about just like really learning and being open to what comes into my life. And I'm trying to just stay open and my clients in many ways guide me to where my interests go. It's like, okay, this person has this issue. It's like, what's out there that could be helpful? And, what in my toolbox can I share? And is there something else that could also benefit them? So lifelong learner here for sure. That's what wellness coaching, that's how I define wellness coaching. So when someone meets with me, discovery call, I talk to them, I have them fill out a questionnaire. That's really helpful because the discovery calls, 20 to 30 minutes. And so I'm able to get a lot of information from them just from the questionnaire. And so I basically go over that with them, figuring out what their current issue is, what they hope to get from our sessions and working together. And then we create kind of like a roadmap on, okay, this is what meeting with me and working with me can look like. I typically recommend 6 to 12 sessions for, most people that have a presenting issue. I like to work with people 2 hours at a time, typically, so we can really get in and do some deep work. But every client that I work with is a different experience, and I use a different blend of tools to help support them.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really important. I think, and maybe it's just the place I've been in, but I think sometimes wellness coaching or the wellness industry, there's kind of this idea that you go in once and then you walk out and all your problems are kind of solved and we've removed the negative energy and you're gone. And like I say before, although there may be people that say, but that's what happened to me. I had this amazing moment. Sometimes I think that gets us into trouble because it becomes more magical, maybe. I don't know. Where I think what happens if we the more study you do, I know with me, the more study I do, the more classes you take, the more you realize just how you get more educated on how we really function as human beings. And as human beings, we are different. We have different parts of us that show up at different times. Different parts of us are upset by different things at different times. And most likely what happens, I'm guessing, in that 6 to 12 sessions is at the end of the 12 sessions, we might be thinking the thing at the beginning was the problem, and we've come to a solution that's way different, or an understanding or a correction that's way different from that beginning problem, but seems to be the root of it. And so if we can give ourselves some time to kind of unfold what's really underneath, I've been trained in NLP too, and things like that. And so when you learn the different levels of brain function and how things get cemented into our psyche, it's like there's an onion there. It kind of needs to unfold. It creates these little pathways of thought processes to get from one place to the other. So when we develop some of these uncomfortable, I think we go in sometimes, and you can tell me about some of your clients, but sometimes you come in and you just think this is the problem. and sure enough, as we, peel back a few layers, it's oftentimes something else. It's oftentimes something that was implanted long ago and causing us to feel this way in the current area. And it's not about that, it's not about, shame. Sometimes people will go into, I took that on, or I did that thing. And I know you're really sensitive and kind about letting people have their experience, and just that's the biggest thing with the wellness coach is the non-judgment and the holding space for whatever shows up. What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like wellness is a journey, right? It's a lifelong journey. And that's why I think it is valuable to for me to have additional offerings. And it's so neat, when people are adding to their toolbox, because it's like, I had a yoga, because I'm a yoga instructor as well. See, it's hard, it's like, oh yeah, I've done that. And it shows up in different ways in my practice. But yeah, I love this analogy that my yoga instructor shared. She calls it ponytail in the water. And so if you've ever been water skiing or wakeboarding, you'll know that like the first time you do that, it can be really hard, right? Because it's like getting the right like momentum from the boat. It's really tricky. And so many people may be yelling from the boat like, okay, like lean back, sit in a chair, pull, bend your elbows. And so they'll give you all these little tips, and it can be really frustrating, especially if you can't get up. It's just like, your tips aren't helping, and I'm like frustrated. And she talked about like one person yelled out, put your ponytail in the water. And it caused her to lean back in a certain way that allowed her to get up. And so she used that analogy for yoga cueing. It's like, you want to say things in many different ways so it can click for people. There's these like ponytail in the water, like feelings like, oh, I get it. I get how that pose is supposed to feel. And I think the same thing can happen in wellness. Like, it is so valuable to have all these different tools out there, different practitioners that, and if you kind of look at a lot of the foundation of a lot of these wellness tools, they're all pretty similar. A lot of it is like releasing negative emotions and limiting beliefs and like helping us manifest and kind of clearing the channels so that we can create the life that we want for ourselves. But then there's so many ways of doing that, and different people are going to resonate with different modalities, and maybe different tools will be helpful at different times. And so I think it is super valuable to have like to experience so many different types. And so at certain times in our life, maybe someone's led to me as a wellness coach, and I have this approach that and training that is resonates with someone. And hopefully that person, whether they continue to work with me on different issues, we keep up leveling, or maybe they'll be led to a different modality that can help them up level in a different way. And so I think it's really important to continue to individually invest in our own wellness and continue to explore different paths. Something I did want to mention just about the niche and lifelong learners. For me, as I mentioned, I'm working specifically with the gay population, and I feel it has been helpful where I'm at in my business because I do have a variety of different offerings all around wellness, but they cover a breadth of knowledge and just different services. Because I have it very broad, it has been super helpful to have a very specific niche. And so that's something that could be just worth considering if you are a lifelong learner like me, figuring out what your niche is. If you have a very specific service, for example, like cranial sacral massage, if that's like your specialty, then you can probably be like, well, yeah, then that's your niche, and then you can give that to everyone. But I have found that helpful to really focus in on a population because I have such broad offerings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like the way listening to your list of offerings. I'm fascinated how you've balanced out the releasing with the incorporating. Like for instance, so those that know the Wholeness Library might know Will he's got the whole list of rapid eye technique, which we have just loved and are so grateful for. And explain for that, there's the intro in our library, and so go see a bigger part of that. But that's almost a releasing kind of technique, you would say, right? And the tell me what that implies, or what the point of that is, and the science behind it, or the theory behind it.
Yeah, so what I've recorded, that was several years ago. It was fun to do that. It's the immediate release technique, and that's a rapid eye technique. It's super powerful when we are feeling triggered in the moment. So that is specifically like, oh my gosh, I'm having a ton of anxiety coming up, or anger coming up. And in a session with clients, there's many different ways of processing emotions. For what I do, I don't need my clients to like feel intense anger or sadness in a session with me. Like I'm a big believer. It's like, oh, let's just release it. Let's just release it. And so I often don't, I want to leave my clients feeling better than they came in. And so if they're coming in with a bunch of negative emotion, or if negative emotion comes up, we can do the immediate release technique. And that's using a variety of different tools in that technique. You're using eye movement pattern, which is going to be accessing the different modalities within the brain, your audio, visual, kinesthetic, primarily, and recall is the other one. And then you're going to be also tapping. So tapping on specific pressure points, which is a natural way of having your body release some of that emotional energy that's held within the body. And then you do deep breathing techniques. I love breath work. And so that's also going to tap into releasing. So you're doing those three simultaneously. And then you're also using verbal inputs. So, I trade in the feeling of fear for the feeling of peace. So there's an actual verbal input as well. And so, be sure to check that out. I love the immediate release technique. I still use it when clients do get triggered. It's like, all right, let's do that. And you will immediately, if you're feeling an 8 or 9 or 10 on, a scale from 0 to 10 of emotional agitation, it's like, it's everyone always reduces to a really low number after doing that. So be sure to check that out for sure.
That's great. So what would make you different, or what would you say with your massage? Is that more of a releasing, or because you have all these other modalities included, does that make your massage a little different than someone else's, would you say? Or what was your purpose behind, or what is your intention when you move into massage? Is it different because you have all these different modalities?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I love the idea of blending modalities. To be honest, most people who've come into my office for massage want massage. Sometimes, there've been different times where I'm like, I can bring Reiki into massage. I can bring hypnosis into the massage, and we can do some deeper work. And sometimes, I've had good experiences with that. But most of the time people are just wanting massage, which is totally fine. I do offer like a hypnosis massage. And so we are able to go into some inner work, which is always great. I do feel like that is just kind of a sampling of the inner work that I can do. Because just, people want to enjoy their massage. They don't want to like talk during their massage. But I love massage, not only for like the therapeutic muscular benefit that many people come into, but I mean, you are, lying there, with you're able to be in your body more than in normal situations. You're relaxed state. You're more aware, and people, will release tension, and there's sore muscle tension, but then there's also like you're holding stress in your upper back and neck. And so all of that, the mind, body, spirit connection is one. So it's all connected. And so I think, people come in maybe for sore muscles primarily, but I think they keep coming back because they know that they're getting more than just muscular relief. There's something deeper there that is happening, and a lot of that releasing and kind of the intuition that I have as a massage therapist, it's just very organic and very natural. Sometimes I do have people request like, yeah, let's do some, guided meditation. Let's do that. But a lot of it just happens naturally when we start being in tune with our body and being still and listening and feeling in a situation like a massage session. People just naturally release, and it's really cool to have that holistic benefit, not just the physical body benefit.
Yeah, there's a really good therapist. She's Canadian. Her name is Hilary McBride, and she's written a book called The Wisdom of Your Body. And she talks about how she was in a couple of car accidents and how she was at a massage therapist. And when the massage therapist rubbed a certain part of her back, just the whole flash of memory came back as far as what happened in that accident. And so it really changed her methods as a therapist in understanding how important the body is to our mental well-being. And when you say out of their body, I mean, I wish we could describe it to someone that just feels so foreign to, but we do disembody or numb off our body, which what I would say, the body is the communicator. It's the one that gives us sensations. It's the one that brings in things from our senses and stores it as information. And when that is disrupted, or when that's numbed off, or when we are separated from that, we are missing those cues that emotional part of us, our spiritual part, and our mental part are trying to, create in this of the experience of the world, right? It comes through the sensations of the body. Even when we're thinking hard, many times we're having sensations up in our brain, you can feel the tension up there as you're thinking. It's a physical experience along with that mental state. So I think it's really a good thing that you are that you have that aspect of training, that the body becomes just as important as our thoughts, beliefs, because they're the best friend of that. That the body keeps the score is another good book by Bezel and Van. Like, it is it's really, that's probably the most fascinating thing that I've learned in the last 5 years, is just how connected the mind and body, or the spirit and body, or the heart and body, just how connected they are, that there really is, that I can go into a sensation. In fact, I'm learning a little about a technique. It's a therapy called internal family systems. Have you ever heard of that? And
I have, yeah.
Yeah. And he, and they're very much it's interesting how in the different modalities they're similar, where it's like, go to the body. Where do you feel it in the body? And it's strange at first, because people, I'll say, where's that emotion? Where do you feel it in your body? Or where are you feeling tension in your body? What is that tension? You go through a process to figure out what that tension is saying, or quote saying, or trying to communicate. But it's really, really effective to go to the body, and it will tell you a lot of times what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, the body is such a beautiful instrument, right? It's encapsulating infinity. Like we are divine essence. I believe that fully, and we are so powerful. And it's so exciting, that we are these spiritual beings having a physical experience. And it's important, right, to be to be present in this experience in the body, and honoring the body. And it's great that there are ways that we can do that, whether it's fitness training, eating healthy, getting massage. There's a lot of reasons why I went into massage, and why I thought it was so valuable. Growing up, my family and I, we were just, we would give massages to each other. That would just be kind of like, if we're just hanging out, like, let's give massages. And there's the human touch is so powerful. And it was fascinating during the pandemic, during 2020. I had to close shop for a few months at the beginning, but then I opened back up in June 2020, and I was so busy, and I've stayed pretty busy since. But it was heartbreaking, because some of the only human touch that people would get was from our session. And, there's been studies done. I think at Body Keep It Score, it talks about the babies. There was an instance, I think it was like during World War II or something, where the babies, there were these orphan babies that weren't being touched by the nurses. They weren't being held, and many of them died. And they compared that to the babies that some of the nurses really took the time to hold and to rock, and they did fine and they thrived. And so there is, like, we are designed for connection, and physical connection is powerful. And so, whether we, have people in our lives that we can hug, we can be close to, or getting a therapeutic massage, like, it has such important value, and it does something to our mind, body, and spirit that is pretty profound.
Yeah, and that's why I thought, that's why the massage, the nutrition, and maybe even your yoga, to me, those are almost like the client receives, and then you've got this. So you've got the modalities of letting go of or getting rid of, and then you've got the modalities of receiving. So I think that it's a good balance. And what about the NLP? What do you like about NLP? How do you use that? What is that? Let's talk about that. I just got my certification as well, and it was like really exciting. The things, it's, to me, I even call it a technology. Like, it's like we have a technology. Nobody knows this, but we have had this technology that we can go into that subconscious and we can change your mind about some things really quickly. I was surprised. Mm-hmm. But how did you get there? What is it? How does it work for you?
Yeah, I love neurolinguistic programming. I had heard about it a while back. I believe that's Tony Robbins' kind of foundational training, as he was trained in that. And so I love Tony Robbins. He's, definitely someone to know in this space. But yeah, like, it is, neurolinguistic programming is like a deep, deep, deep well. Like, it's, I in the last year, I've really dived into it, and there's so many layers to it. And so if you're in this space, I would definitely recommend dipping into it, reading books about it, taking trainings, because it is such a good foundational, like, principles for helping others and understanding yourself. So neurolinguistic programming, I mean, I see it in myself every day. I see it in the people that I work with. It's all around us. And it's basically the programs that we live under. And when I say programs, it's the patterns that show up in our life. It's the way we view the world. And we call it the model of the world. So we each have these models of the world because we have to make sense of reality. There's so much going on in any given moment. Our five senses that we're taking in any given moment are limited. And not only that, we can only focus on so much at any given time. They say like for example, like the phone number being 7 digits long, it's like we really, our minds can only handle about 7 kind of, like 7 different things at a time. And so if we think about in any given moment, like we have a very filtered version of reality and our life. And when we start like unpacking that is our model of the world, is our filters. And so how I use that with my clients is it's super helpful when we're first starting out, because I want to understand what my client's model of the world is and certain assumptions that they make about themselves, about the world around them. It's like, okay, so NLP helps us identify our own and others' model of the world. And models of the world are fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. I only care about the things that aren't serving them. It's like, okay, this area of my life isn't working. How is that connected to your model of the world or your belief system? Is there a belief that maybe just isn't accurate and can be challenged for the purpose of improving your life? So the first several sessions, I'm basically understanding, asking questions when people make statements that kind of denote that there is a belief around that. It's like, oh, like for example, no one ever listens to me. And it's like, a common way of challenging is like, no one ever listens to you. Like, I'm listening to you right now. So we make these like blanket statements a lot in our life, and we don't even realize it. A fish doesn't know they're in a fishbowl, right? This is just life. And oftentimes we don't know that we are blinded by our own patterns until someone else points that out, it's like, hey, you do know, like, there's another way of seeing the situation. And they're like, oh, like, I thought that was just how the world is. So it's really exciting to have people just be like, whoa, it is a whole mental shift because we are seeing life in a very specific way. And as a coach, to help people consider like, oh, you know that there's another option. There's another fishbowl, actually. Like, this isn't all you have to live under. That can be a huge groundbreaking experience.
Yeah, I loved learning that how different people take in information. Some people are more audible. It comes in through hearing the best, or some people it's visual. They see things visual, and other people are more feeling in their bodies. In fact, I thought it was interesting. Are you familiar with the Enneagram? I'm wanting to do an interesting thing to see if I can kind of put together NLP and Enneagram and see if, because they have these centers in the Enneagram, and I think it'd be interesting to see if that matches what their NLP profile would say about how they take in information, because you got the 2, 3, 4 are feeling based or heart based, emotion based, and then 5, 6, 7 are mind based, and then 8, 9, 1 are body based. So it'd be interesting if I just always thought, I wonder if I could get a group together and see if I could see some correlations between those two, because I think it's really fascinating for me, at least, to recognize how I see things, and that right there, because I use the word see, probably looks at that I'm more visual, right? Where somebody else would like, so even just the vocabulary I learned through NLP about catching people and how they speak and what they're really saying, like maybe somebody will sell, somebody that the saying, it smells like success, that smells of success. They might be somebody which is rare, or I see the future and it's bright, or I feel like this is going to be a great day, or I think, I feel versus I think kind of languaging lets us know how you process information. And once you know that, you can kind of go through the world with a little more ownership of what you're taking in, and with the ability to look at it and see if that's what you want to take in, or if the biases that we have, and the biases, just because, like you say, just because by nature we can't take in the whole story, we just cannot. So our brain automatically filters it down into what's important, specifically related to any hurts or pain that has come in the past. I mean, that's the first line of defense. Like, that has hurt in the past, this is close to it, and that's what we would call a trauma response, right? Which can come in all sorts of sizes, this little trauma response. And then we're in a different mode than the other person maybe is, because we've got the story from the past that our filter has said, red alert, shut down, here's what's happening. So by learning that, I really, really understood myself as far as I was receiving information. And then it gave me some grace for other people to realize they're learning something different from their perspective. They see things from a different lens, literally, so that's what's been great about NLP. And then I know I have a hypnosis one I haven't started. It came into NLP, and because they're very similar as far as understanding, hypnosis has like this strange thing, but it's really just getting the brain, and I haven't taken the class yet, but getting it right into a state where it can now receive new information and get rid of old information. Is that a good explanation of hypnosis or hypnotherapy?
Yeah. I mean, hypnosis, if you're in this space, it's like, it's so beautiful how everything blends together. It's like, oh my gosh, like it, like dots connect, and it's really exciting. Hypnosis, again, gets us to that relaxed brainwave state. And you're right to say, like, a lot of people have these kind of strange ideas around hypnosis. A lot of it comes from stage hypnosis, where they have you cluck like a chicken, and it makes it seem like you are like someone else is controlling you. That actually is not the case. Mind control, I mean, to be able to like really like brainwash or control someone's mind, like that's kind of like torture behavior, like lack of sleep, like really crazy stuff. what happens in a hypnosis session is simply you allow yourself to get to a relaxed brainwave state. And that, typically is done with the hypnotherapist, and you are choosing to follow instructions, and that's basically all it is. And you're allowing yourself to use the creative centers in your brain. In many ways, it is like a form of guided meditation. When you are being guided in a meditation, you are doing the same thing. You are, like walking down a path or walking on the beach, and you are following the instructions of the person who's facilitating that. So similarly with the hypnotherapist, you are doing that, and ultimately the goal is to, in most cases, is to receive what we call suggestions, and those suggestions are things that the client has told the hypnotherapist that they want to have in their life. If they want healing, they want confidence, or whatever it is, then during the process of hypnotherapy, we get to kind of the what we call trance. So this very relaxed state. I mean, that can be, almost theta level, deep, slow brainwave activity. And then the therapist is able to share those suggestions to the client, and they're able to receive it. And the subconscious brain is very powerful. And so if we, are willing to follow directions, for example, one of we call them inductions. One of the inductions is to, to raise your hand. Imagine a balloon, a helium balloon is lifting your hand. And so you follow those instructions, and then they can tell me to drop the hand. So they do these like physical manifestation instructions. And so if you can follow those, then you can also follow the instructions to be more confident and to, get the results that you want in your life. So it's very powerful. I love it. It blends well with so many different modalities. I think people have intrigue around hypnosis because of its movies and like the different like spectacle of it. It's more like normal. You could say it's more normal than people I think realize, but some of the mysticism actually could make it more powerful for the client, because it is belief. Like if you like think that like there's this kind of mysticalness of it. I mean, life is mystical. The universe is mystical. But if you think, if you think there's like this extra layer of like, yes, what the hypnotherapist says I can actually receive, then that can work to the client's benefit. But it is actually a very natural and normal process. We experience trance almost every day in different ways. When we're watching a movie, for example, and we get bought into a movie, it's like, oh, my heart is racing, or I get emotion. That's us. That's us buying into this. Basically, it's a kind of a different reality, and that's what we allow ourselves to do in a hypnosis session.
Yeah, that's why it was intriguing to me, because like even in a Reiki, I've done Reiki too, and I mean the goal, you got to get the heart rate, the nervous system in a place that is at peace, which in the brain we'd call it the wavelength, or what you've called it, but in getting that because the nervous system isn't a thinking system, it's a reactive system, but you've got this reactive system and then the thinking system going at the same time, sometimes interacting with each other in negative ways, sometimes positive. But if we can get the nervous system to calm down enough so that the thinking comes online, and I think that's what it is, it's a balance of those. It kind of gets those two into balance so that now we can incorporate some of the things that we want to incorporate. And so like I'm just repeating what you're saying, as far as it's really kind of normal and natural. It's just a way of we can get into really technically what's happening, but it's something that we do all the time with when we are when we're relaxed. There's two kind of ways we can get information really quick: either trauma, which is high at the other end of the spectrum, where it's like I talk about this, my son he's in the Air Force, so when he was in basic training, that was the level of influence, was high impact, fear, scared, so that he learned the lesson really fast, but on the other end of the spectrum, we can do the same thing, very relaxed, very kind and gentle, and getting the body at the complete opposite end of the spectrum. And it's just as effective. In fact, I was probably not the best military mom at the graduation because I was like, there's a better way. Maybe there's a different way. I don't know. I'm more sensitive that way. It was hard to hear stories of that from my son. But yeah, I think that's fascinating. I think more people should give it a try. I think it's like we're halfway there, because we're kind of, like you say, guided meditations. We're just one more step, and you'd be interested to see how beneficial it can be. I want to hear about your timeline therapy. I'm unfamiliar with this particular thing. But I'm familiar with it's called lifespan integration, and it sounds similar to me. So I want to hear about this timeline therapy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So timeline therapy is kind of an offshoot of NLP. So NLP is, like I said, it's a pretty broad range of knowledge. It's been, it's not a lot of, like life coaching, it's unregulated. So there's a lot of different kind of branches of it. And timeline work, where you're kind of going linearly through life, is like a part of NLP. And then and Tad James, so there's a company called Tad James, a guy named Tad James started it. He's no longer living, but I believe his wife has taken over his company. He has done a lot of research and work around NLP, and has kind of come up with a specific technique called timeline technique. And the person who trained me, Rebecca de Azevedo, she runs the I Heal Institute. She trained me, and so I've learned that technique. And yeah, basically it blends well with NLP and hypnosis. And it's a very powerful technique that helps you go through your past negative emotional wounds, you can call them, or limiting beliefs, and release them. So that's really where we do kind of the heavy lifting of releasing when I'm working with a client. And it's really neat because it doesn't require like you don't have to tell me any events. You just have to recognize, when we are going through the session, what the root. So if we're focusing on anger, I'd have you go to the root of that anger, and I have you go through, find that in time. So we actually have you visualize a timeline and go back to that event. And then it's a very powerful process of releasing the event or the emotions around it. And it's really quite easy and almost effortless. Like it's really powerful. In my view, it's so empowering how simple it can be to release years and years of baggage. And sometimes we think, because we've life can be hard, and we've struggled through something so intense. Sometimes we realize or we think that it has to be we have to talk about it for years and years and years, or we took it on in a place of hurt, so it has to hurt to release it. And it's actually, we can choose to release it. And to not go into too much detail about it, but to kind of give you one of the main premises of it is, if we think about karma, one of the concepts of karma is, what you put out is what will come back to you. And I think we can receive, there's some universal truths about this idea of karma, whether you believe in reincarnation or not. You don't have to get into the religious aspects of it, but there's there's this other element of karma that talks about life will keep giving you the same lessons until you are ready to learn them and move on. And so, like, if you are, you can give so many examples, but if you, if you are a very angry person, you probably will be presented with opportunities to outgrow that anger or be able to like advance, and like people will agitate you or whatever it is. So you'll be given opportunities in life that will help you release those things. And there's what's really important is that we learn the lesson from the emotion or the experience in order to release it. And so one of the things that I explore with clients is, for example, let's say anger. You carry a ton of anger with you. Like there's just anger, it just keeps popping up in your life. So what I would want to do with you in a timeline therapy session is go to the root of that anger and understand, well, first honor that anger, because our body is beautiful, and everything that's happening is really designed for survival and designed to even help us thrive. And so emotions are not our enemies. They actually protect us, and anger will protect you. If you talked about military, like it can protect you from, to stay alive. It can protect your family in a situation that's dangerous. And so anger does have a role in our existence. What we're concerned about is if we repress the emotion or hold on to the emotion. And so we are carrying that anger throughout our lives, and it's no longer like, it doesn't have a specific purpose. It's stuck. It's trapped within us. And it is actually going to have, if we hold on to emotions like that, especially negative emotions, we can hold on to love and joy and peace and gratitude. Those are great. But if we're holding on to anger, sadness, fear, guilt, shame, anxiety, like those are going to have negative outcomes if they're just held. And
held
so
on
we
to
want to
specifically with an event as well, like tied to an event, but keep going. Yeah. Because it's like, it's actually because of an event that's being hung on to. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not just because we're excited to have anger, there was, like you say, there was a pivot point where that particular anger was ignited, I would say, maybe. And then like you say, and then it starts to color our world from there forward, which becomes unhealthy or causing damage to other relationships or to our own lives. Would you say that? Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I love this kind of approach of coaching because it assumes so much about people in general. One, it's you are amazing and incredible, and you have all of the resources within yourself, and you have all the, you are a very wise and powerful being, and you are actually really great at creating the life that you have. Like we've all created our lives, and we can take responsibility for that. And so when dysfunction happens, such as holding on to a repressed emotion for years and years and years, we also look at it from a perspective of there was purpose and meaning from that. Sometimes it can be, for example, if you have so much going on in your life and something really sad and awful happens to you, and it's like, I don't have the time or energy to deal with this sadness or anger, repressing that emotion can actually serve you. And I wouldn't say it's optimal, but it's like maybe for your survival, you weren't ready to deal with the weight of that emotion or whatever that experience was. So so again, it's like honoring every part about us. It's like, we are not broken. We are not dysfunctional. We are consciously choosing and making the best decisions that we know how to make. But when someone agrees to meet with me and we say, oh my gosh, there's a pattern that's not working in your life. There's some dysfunction. And then we can start looking at what might be leading to it. And if someone is open and willing to address some of those negative emotions that maybe have been repressed or held on to for all these years, then it's like, awesome. Well, this might be the opportunity to release it. You can choose to keep holding on to it if that's serving you, and usually it isn't. But they have that option. And so it's very empowering to recognize that. And it can be as simple as going back to the root of that emotion or limiting belief and honoring it. Maybe that anger was a defensive mechanism to keep you alive. And we can say like, oh my gosh, anger, we love you. Thank you so much for protecting me and for helping me during that time. I learned you want to take the lessons from that anger. And, usually I have like a list of like, oh my gosh, like this is what it was meant to teach you. Now that you have those lessons, you can take them with you without holding on to that anger, and you can move forward. And emotions will continue to happen in our lives, right? We're never going to get rid of anger or sadness. Like those still play a role in our lives, but we don't want to be responding in life as a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old child who got angry at his whatever brother and now is reacting from that space. We want to react in the present. So, releasing those emotions doesn't mean we won't have emotions in the present day. It's just we've released the reservoir of that negative emotion so that we can be present and use those emotions as they were meant to be used, as reactions to in the moment, and then we release them without holding on to the baggage.
Yeah. Just to 2 points I want to just like emphasize that you made. One, that it's simple, and 2, that the timeline makes a difference. And I'll tell you a story. I was volunteering at an event, and they just asked me to come and volunteer my time to work with people. They would pay just a small fee to have a session with someone, right? And so we had 20-minute sessions. They were 20-minute sessions. So it wasn't like I didn't know how this would turn out, right? Well, I had a man who came to me, and he had gone to another practitioner, and I don't, whatever had happened in that session, he had walked away with, she had helped me get rid of my anger, and I never want to feel angry again, So he says, I'm coming to you because I want to double down on that. Like, I never want to feel angry again. And so his story was, he was going through a divorce, and in the last year, he had the big story about what was going on and how his anger had gotten him into trouble because it was causing maybe in his mind, his divorce. And so, I think maybe that the other practitioner had kind of looked at that and said, okay, well, let's get rid of anger so that you can connect to your spouse, which, is a valid thing to do. But as we got on the table, I moved him back in time to that original, when he felt that for the first time. I asked him, in a relaxed state, when was the first time you felt this? And I invited him to go back, in time, hovering above a timeline and dropping down into the space where that anger was created. And like you say, and I said, look, see how it was needed in that moment. And we don't want to get rid of anger for the rest of your life. We want to get rid of the pain that this anger, when this anger came in, that it came in at a pain point. That's what we're looking for. So in this, like I say, it was a 20-minute session, but when he opened his eyes, he said, he was just amazed. He was just amazed. In fact, in that he gave me a big, huge tip, and he was so grateful. It was supposed to be, it was volunteer. They could tip if they wanted, but he gave, because he was like, really to understand. I mean, it's so validating too, in ways, to know, oh, that makes sense that I'm reacting that way, or it makes sense that that's in my life. And so then all of a sudden you become so self-compassionate, which is so healing, right? That I think that the timeline part of wellness coaching is really, really valuable if you get a chance to, because a lot of times we can go forward, we can make goals, we can make goals ahead. And sometimes we've got to willpower past these hurts and pains, and we can do it for a time, but pretty soon it feels like we failed. And it's not. it's just because there's something in the past, there's some part of our timeline that's created some of this stuff that's in our way. And it's not a lack of discipline causing a problem. It's pain, it's suffering. And to be gentle. That's why the wellness world is so appealing to me, because a good wellness practitioner's heart is just full of love and compassion. And because I felt it with me when I had my experience of, that was the first time I had a healing session. That was what stayed with me, was this kind, gentle hold space for my healing with no judgment, and just willing to be with me, and all that I thought caused me to be too much problem for the world, or caused me to feel like what was happening to me was too much. And to see someone not get overwhelmed by that, to see someone be willing to be there and be with me, and not get overtaken by what I thought would just take anybody down. I just thought it would take anybody down. And that's what a good healer can do. And I know that you are that space, particularly for your niche, the gay men, and they need that. And we're going to talk about that in another episode specifically, because I think that's worth a conversation. But as we kind of close, I wanted to ask you, how would someone coming to a wellness coach session, what would you describe about how does that help them become whole, or help them move into wholeness? What is that process, or how would you define that for somebody to coming to a practitioner like you in a wellness coach?
Yeah, I think so. Again, like what I shared before, it's like, I want to view all my clients, and I truly believe this about myself and everyone. Like, we are complete and whole. Like we are that. We're not coming from a place that like, I need to fix you or anything like that. It's like, you are complete and whole, and you are creating everything in your life. Like your current life, you've built that, and you've done a great job at creating your current life. What's fun and fascinating about life and existence is we are always, like human beings, we are designed to progress. We are designed for movement. And so we will, if we are open to it, can continue to accumulate more light and more goodness and influence more and more people. So we're not static beings. We can be whole and also like continue to grow. And I believe that is within us. And so one thing that I think is a great quality to have is to desire to always grow and to progress. And those are the type of people that I'm looking for and that I can work with. What we would consider someone to be like uncoachable. And that could be a personality issue. Like there can be some people that I just like, I'm just not jiving with. We don't have rapport or whatever. But another element of someone not being coachable is someone who's completely content with where they're at. If there are no problems in your life, if everything is perfect, then keep doing what you're doing. The reality is no one has reached perfection. And I mean, it's just like I believe God himself, he is continuing to expand. We're his children, and we're continuing so the work never ends. But if someone feels like everything's perfect, then they would be someone that I just probably wouldn't work with. But when people that do come to me do recognize that there's something in their life that isn't serving them, isn't working, the way that they want it to. So that is where we start. And like you mentioned, like some people come in thinking that this is, a particular thing is the issue. But when we do, when I use the tools of NLP and really start to dig and see what's underneath. So we have our like presenting problem, and then we have the structure. And that typically is where the root is. And when we address that, it's going to have a multifaceted ripple effect in many areas of their life. And so that's where when someone says, okay, we have this issue, we dig, locate the root, and then we focus on what it is you want to create in your life. It's kind of a fundamental formula that I think everyone should know, and what I teach my clients is, this is the formula for manifesting. So here it is. First, you need to know what you want. And sometimes people don't know what they want. So that's where a coach is helpful. It's like, let's figure out like really what it is you want to create and manifest in your life. So that's number one. Number two is to focus on that. So we want to focus on what we want to create. Oftentimes we focus on the problem, and during our sessions, we do address the problem. We do honor it. We go back to those roots and address it. But ultimately, where I want my clients to focus on is what they want to create in their life. That's the power of manifesting. Our just like prayer energy, just like meditation, visualization energy, like we are powerful beings, and what we focus on, we create more of. It's like the law of attraction. And so I want us to be focused on not only what you want, but actually living as if you already have it and being in the frequency of what you want to manifest. So number two is focus. And then number three, so our focus naturally leads to what we think about. So our thoughts. And we want to have a good relationship with our thoughts. That's why meditation is so valuable, because it helps us create distance with our thoughts. It helps us like, okay, we have, 60,000 different thoughts, let's just say, a day. It's what is it that is getting our attention? And so when we focus our attention on, what it is we want to create, that's going to naturally influence what we think about. And our thoughts will then lead to our beliefs. Our beliefs will then lead to our feelings, and then our feelings will lead to our results. So that's the formula. And most people, it's like, man, I've created my vision board. I want these, I want health and wellness and these different things. I want lots of money, whatever it is. They put it out there, but then they don't realize two of I would say the biggest areas where people run into conflicts around manifesting is negative emotions and limiting beliefs. And so when you look at that formula, all those steps are really important, but where we will find probably the biggest disruption on creating the life that we want for ourselves are negative emotions and limiting beliefs. Those will, we can say, those affirmations, I am confident. But if you innately believe that I am worthless, and you will carry that negative emotion of, shame about yourself, it's really going to block your ability to manifest. And so that's why we do the excavating. That's why we get to the root in timeline therapy, because then once you clear that pathway, you'll be a master manifester, and you'll be able to create what you want. You'll be like, oh my gosh, like sky's the limit. Like what, you have like a universal registrar, and you can just like, I want to make more money. I want a relationship, and you're able to tap into, endless potential of creative energy once you start clearing out those pathways of manifesting.
Join us next time when Will and I discuss the unique support he provides for gay men and how we can support our LGBTQ+ friends and loved ones.